So, you've gone and created your brand new Asp.NET Core 1.0 application, and now you need somebody to look at it. You've got to publish it somewhere. But how are you going to do that? Let's mash on that. Hi everybody, and welcome to the Asp.NET Monsters. This is episode number 49, and we're going to take a look at right-click deployment. Alright, so let's take a look at this application here. This is your standard file new project. This is the same sort of thing that I do every time because I'm too scared to use the same project over and over again for fear that I've introduced something terrible to it. So we've got this standard project here, and I'm going to just go ahead and right-click here, and we're going to try publishing this up to the Azure cloud, which is, I guess, a internet thing that people have now. So let's go and start with a new custom profile here, and we'll call this publish one. So you can use a bunch of different ways of publishing stuff. You can just publish packages to local disk, or web deploy, or FTP, or anything like that. So let's go right on to web deploy here. This is not right at all. I'm going to go back here and do a Microsoft Azure App Service here. So this is going to provide me the ability to go out and provision my resource group and choose my subscription and all of that stuff right off the bat here. So I'm going to start, I think, just in monsters here. So we have a monsters demo there already. So let's go and create a new one here. So we can call this monsters demo 1. You can choose your subscription here. I'm going to leave my MSDN one because this is a totally legitimate MSDN deployment. You can choose the resource group that you're going to. So a resource group is like a collection of things inside Azure that you're grouping together. So you might group together your website, your database, maybe you're using an instance of Azure Search, so you can put all of those things inside the same resource group. So further down the road, if you decide you want to delete the whole kit and caboodle, you only have to delete one thing instead of deleting a bunch of stuff. And it's also really easy to go in and browse directly to that particular group without having to go through like the 500 websites that you have and a bunch of different resource groups. You can drill straight into that resource group and see just the stuff that's associated with it. So I have a monsters resource group already here, so we'll take that here. You can choose your app servicing plan. We all went and read what an app servicing plan was before this started, and nobody could figure out what it is. So it's a thing.
Well, it's something that you can use to group application services. So any of those like app monikers, the APIs, the mobile services, things like that, you can group them into a service and performance tier. It's basically to help control costs, pricing, scalability, those kinds of things. It's isolated inside of a resource group, and you can hop applications around from app service plan to app service plan. But I don't know that I found the aha moment for how I would use it quite yet, but that's the gist of what it is.
Maybe you guys can tell me if I'm way off on my understanding of this, but I thought that an app service plan essentially related to these web apps. When we deploy them, they run on a machine somewhere, right? And the app service plan is roughly equivalent to the virtual machine that these will actually be deployed to. So if you deploy 3 or 4 web apps to the same app service plan, they all run on that same virtual machine. So they're sharing the cores and the RAM on that machine.
Yeah, that
when you
kind of
deploy
makes
them.
sense.
Yes, and then anything that's in that performance tier, as you scale it out, you get additional machines of that size.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds good.
And you could have a free tier that you've got configured, and then you could have the ridiculously large production tier, and then you can move something out of your development kind of space or your test space from a lower service plan up into something higher, migrate it, still the same resource group, and then you can move it from environment to environment.
Okay, sounds good. So I'm just going to leave this as default. I don't know what plan 1 is. Something else I've created at some point. So let's churn on forward here and continue with our deployment. This part can take a little bit of time. So I have helpfully provisioned you guys some music to listen to. Da da da. Oh, just in time it finished before the edition of stuff. So there we go. Now we've got that new publish profile set up here, and we'll just kind of click through here. I feel like this should have stuff in it, and it doesn't. So we'll switch back to, maybe it was this one here that I had. Yeah, we go. So it's the one that I was looking for here. So the difference here is that it has all sorts of stuff filled in for me, including what I imagine is a very short and eloquent password that is not huge. So this has been downloaded from Azure for me. You can go back and download the publish profile manually if you want to, but why would anybody do that now? So we'll right-click, or we'll click forward here. We're going to release in the release configuration. At the moment, there's just version 1.0 out there. So I would imagine at some point we'll get version 1.1, hopefully quite soon. I don't have any databases associated with this, and the file publish options are pretty much limited to removing additional files. You can or you can't. I'm going to leave this one off because this is a brand new publish, so it's not really going to make any difference here. Starting a preview is just going to show me all the files that are going to be published up there. I'm going to mistakenly click that because that's also going to take a little bit of time to do this. It's going to go out and build the package, and it's going to compare with what's out there right now, which is nothing. So unless this finishes quickly, we can move back the go from Epinita. All right, fortunately it finished quickly again.
Oh, man, that was close, thank goodness.
Lucky. So let's go ahead here and click publish. And it's going to go out and build everything for me. So what's different now about the publishing stuff is that you can see under this publish profile here, we've got a couple of files created. I actually have two kind of sets of files here because I have two different profiles that we're going to publish. But we have this handy dandy PowerShell script in here now, which does all the publishing for us. So this is what you would run from the command line if you wanted to build this outside of Visual Studio, and you do your deployment from here. So it's pretty simple. So it looks like this is coming up now. And we'll just wait for this to load so we can see that it is in fact out there on Azure. And look at that. It's a friendly monster website.
Hey!
In which I've
Perfect.
sized all the images perfectly, and it's not janky at all.
Well done.
I'm a professional web developer, ladies and gentlemen. Do not try this at home. So just
Can we submit a PR to get this into the official file new project template?
Yeah, I feel like it should definitely have monster stuff in there. We can
Absolutely.
already sneak that by the review team.
Nobody will
this
notice.
is just like the setup here that you would run if you just were publishing from the command line here. So we're just importing like a publishing module here and publishing it up there. All the settings you'll find inside this here. So you can see like this is where we're deploying it to, and this is username. It will save the password off. Fortunately not in this file, so you guys can't secretly go and overwrite my fabulous looking website. And then we also have this is the actual like publishing module in here that we imported inside of that other PowerShell script here. So this one is a little bit more involved, and by a little bit more involved, I mean vastly more involved. But actually most of the stuff in here is simply setting stuff up. If you happen to be running this on a machine that doesn't have like the right versions of tools installed on it, then this will go off and do the tool installation stuff for you, so we can actually minimize a bunch of this stuff here, I think. And then the interesting stuff is somewhere towards the bottom here. So you can go in here and override stuff. So this is much cleaner in my mind than the way that publishing used to work with Asp.Net, which was that everything was kind of hidden away inside of secret MS build files, and doing something simple like, hey, I want to add an additional file to this package. That used to be like just a huge problem to do, and there were like lengthy blog posts on how do you add an additional file to your package without adding it explicitly inside of Visual Studio, and it was super difficult to do. And here you can just kind of go in and edit the PowerShell directly to put whatever it is that you need to add to your package directly in there.
Okay, cool. So this is, I mean, we have tended to, as developers, I mean, you, Dave, and myself have all gone on to projects where the first thing we do is we go and we introduce ourselves, we talk to the team, and we say, so how are you deploying? And they go, oh, I just right-click in Visual Studio and I deploy. And we go, oh, so let's tell you about a thing called a build and deployment server. So we've steered people away here. What are some valid use cases where the right-click publish approach is something that you would recommend?
Well, I can see a couple of scenarios for it. If you are just like a person doing deployments on like your blog or something like that, then as much as I would be like, oh, you should absolutely use build a deployment server, it's not worth your time to set something like that up. This is perfectly reasonable for that. You don't need to have like a huge pipeline that's set up to do integration tests and regression tests and those sorts of things. So there's a huge market segment out there that is just like Joe the plumber, right? That doesn't need a massive app pipeline that can get away with just something like this. And it is simple to set this stuff up now. Like if you use something like, I can't believe I'm going to just recommend TFS to people, but if you use something like the TFS hosted build stuff now, it's pretty simple. It's actually not horrific now. It's pretty good. They've taken some good lessons from other build tools out there, so it is nicer to do it. So you can use that. It is very simple to set up. I mean, like I had a kind of a low value website that I set up on it in probably an hour, and that's been actually invaluable for that site now, because people just check stuff in and it shows up in production 10 minutes later. But also, I guess if you're doing development locally and you have something that is really only testable on Azure, so I'm looking at you, things like DocumentDB, where there's no way to run it locally, then you might want to deploy it up to Azure. Just right-clicking inside your environment to do that instead of having to run through a complicated build pipeline just for local dev changes to it.
Very good. Yeah, that the mom and pop shop thing where it's, you're hands-on for a short period of time and then you're hands-off, and it's, more or less static for months at a time, having and paying for all of the monthly resources for maintaining a build server out there in a cloud service somewhere or something like that is probably, you're right, probably not worth it, where we've got a tool like this where if we're so inclined, we could wire it up, we could run it from the command line, we could automate it if we want to, we can wrap some plumbing around it if we need to, but for the most part, right-clicking and publishing from Visual Studio is probably going to be okay.
Yeah, I mean, there are even scenarios that I can imagine where that deploy from Dropbox is the right solution. I think it's on me to admit that, but there are scenarios where that's not a bad way to go.
Well, maybe for the next episode that we record, Simon, you can walk us through deploying via Dropbox.
Well, I might walk you through deploying via TFS. So that doesn't seem like
Perfect.
a terrible
That's a good
story,
idea.
so we can give that a shot. And I feel like that might be the next chapter that I'm supposed to write in the book anyways. So.
Yes. Perfect.
All right, well, thanks everybody for showing up, and we'll see everybody next time on the ASP.NET Monsters.
Cheers.
Bye.